The exact moment my world unraveled is still clear in my mind. It wasn't loud or chaotic. There were no tears or raised voices, just a few sharp words spoken with chilling calm. I was in Budapest, mid-presentation in a crowded conference room, pitching a deal that could potentially secure the future of my company. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I hadn't planned to answer it, but something, maybe instinct, nudged me to step aside. "Hello," I answered, keeping my voice composed and professional. "It's Kathy," came the voice on the other end. It sounded distant, devoid of the warmth I was used to hearing whenever I traveled. "I'm leaving you." The words didn't register immediately. I stood in silence, my brain struggling to process her emotionless delivery. Then she added, "I'm pregnant. The baby's Roger's. I've already sold the house and the car. Don't bother coming back." There was no pause, no regret in her tone. My wife of 7 years dismantled our life together with the efficiency of closing a business deal. I clutched the phone tighter, expecting to feel rage, sadness, or at least shock, but nothing surfaced. My thoughts moved too quickly for emotions to catch up. "All right," I replied, my tone unshaken. She went quiet. I could sense her surprise, the hesitation in her breath. She likely anticipated a dramatic response, perhaps yelling or pleading. But instead, she got quiet composure. It wasn't that I didn't care. I did, deeply. But I understood instinctively that giving in to an emotional outburst would only give her a sense of triumph. "That's it? Just all right?" she asked, irritation slipping into her voice. "Yes," I answered, then ended the call. Sliding my phone back into my pocket, I returned to the conference room and continued my presentation as if nothing had happened. No one in that room knew my marriage had just collapsed. And truthfully, I hadn't come to terms with it myself. The trip back to the hotel passed in a haze. My body moved on routine, but my thoughts were racing, unraveling every word Kathy had said. Pregnant. And not mine. Roger, who was he? The house, the car, everything sold. It all sounded too precise, like this plan had been set in motion long ago. Alone in my hotel room, overlooking the lights of Budapest, a low burn of anger began to stir inside me. But I didn't let it take over. Instead, I opened my laptop and started making calls. If Kathy believed she could ambush me and walk away unscathed, then she had forgotten who she married. When Kevin, my lawyer, answered, I got straight to the point. "I need you to stop the sale of our house immediately." "Ben, what's going on?" he asked, concern in his voice. "My wife just informed me she's leaving. She says the house and the car are already sold." There was a beat of silence as he processed it. "We'll freeze any transactions involving the house title and the car," he said. "Is the car still under your name?" "It is," I confirmed. "Then she can't legally sell it without your consent." "I'll handle everything," he assured me. I thanked him and moved to the next call. "Maria," I said once my financial advisor answered, "freeze all joint accounts." She didn't need an explanation. She simply acknowledged the request. That's why I trusted her. Once the logistics were under control, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. The shock hadn't left me, but something new was rising. Resolve. I wouldn't let Kathy tear me down. She believed she had struck the final blow, that her betrayal would leave me broken. But she had underestimated me. I had spent years sharpening my skills as a strategist in the business world, outmaneuvering rivals, sealing deals that others thought were out of reach. She might have caught me off guard emotionally, but she had just made her first move in a game she didn't even realize she had started. I didn't lash out because I knew better. An emotional response would hand her control, and I had no intention of letting that happen. I would bide my time, build my strategy, and make my move when the moment was right. She assumed she had won, but this was far from over. The thing about betrayal is that it rarely arrives without warning. It isn't only about the act itself. It's about the web of lies, the secret plans, and the manipulation leading up to it. Kathy didn't just wake up one day and decide to leave. She had been plotting, arranging everything behind my back, while I was busy building a future for us. Her biggest miscalculation was assuming I wasn't paying attention. Once the shock of her announcement faded, I immediately got to work. Rage might have been satisfying, but it served no purpose. Pleading with her to change her mind was off the table. Instead, I shifted into what I knew best: strategy. The first move was to gather intel. I had no idea who Roger was, but I knew someone who could uncover that information. I reached out to Alistair, a private investigator I had hired before. "I need you to look into someone," I told him. "His name is Roger. He's seeing my wife." Alistair didn't ask any unnecessary questions. He just requested Kathy's phone number and any recent details I had. "Give me a couple of days," he said before I ended the call. That brief exchange sparked the return of something I'd been missing: control. My next focus was on the assets Kathy claimed to have liquidated. The house topped the list. If she had truly sold it, I should have seen legal documents requiring my signature. Still, I double-checked with Kevin. "She can't complete a sale without my approval, correct?" I asked. "That's right," he confirmed. "But she can put it on the market. I'll look into any recent listings and flag them right away." Within 60 minutes, he got back to me. Kathy had listed the house just the previous week, priced well below market to attract a quick buyer. But Kevin had already intervened and stopped the process. As for the car, it was a simpler matter. It was leased under my name, meaning any transfer of ownership without my consent was impossible. Nevertheless, I contacted the dealership to make sure no unauthorized changes had been attempted. Everything remained under my control. Then came the financial front. I instructed Maria, my financial advisor, to freeze all joint accounts immediately. Kathy would wake up to find her access completely denied: no money transfers, no withdrawals, no impulsive purchases. But I didn't want her to realize what had happened right away. If she figured out the accounts were locked, she'd know I was on to her. So, I told Maria to make the freeze look like a minor technical problem, a glitch that wouldn't raise her suspicions. With my finances secured, I allowed myself a brief moment to enjoy the satisfaction of having turned the tide. Kathy believed she had outwitted me. In reality, she was walking right into the trap I had set. That evening, alone in my hotel room, I mentally retraced the events of the past few months. The canceled dinners, the hidden messages, her sudden fascination with luxury items — it had all been there, yet I had chosen to overlook it, attributing it to stress or simple ennui. I had been blind. The truth about betrayal is this: it exposes more about the one who betrays than the one who is betrayed. Kathy believed she could fool me, that I was too preoccupied with work to see the growing fissures in our relationship. What she didn't understand was that I had developed sharp instincts through years of high-stakes negotiations and boardroom battles. I could detect deception instantly. It just took longer to notice it when it was coming from someone so close. By the time I turned in for the night, a plan had already begun to form. My objective wasn't merely to protect what was mine, it was to let Kathy believe she still had the upper hand. I wanted her to feel secure, triumphant even, because that's when people start to slip up. At sunrise, Alistair called with his initial findings. "Roger's quite the character," he told me. "He's got a record of scamming women out of their savings. Some even went to the police, but nothing stuck. He knows how to vanish when things get rough." I gave a cold smile. Kathy had chosen poorly, but I wasn't going to step in. "Keep going," I told him. "I want everything: his addresses, accounts, history, relationships. Leave no stone unturned." Alistair assured me he'd dig deeper, and I felt another puzzle piece fall into place. The brilliance of a strong plan lies in its precision. No hasty actions, just carefully calculated steps. Kathy had no clue she was already playing a losing game. I gave myself another small moment of satisfaction, staring out at the city of Budapest. Kathy likely thought she had taken it all, expected me to come back to an empty house, bewildered and broken. She probably imagined my return filled with confusion and despair. What she didn't know was that I had already set the wheels in motion to destroy her illusion, piece by piece. While she was playing house with Roger, believing she was beginning a shiny new life, she was oblivious to the fact that everything was already crumbling beneath her. The first sign that her fantasy was falling apart happened when she tried to access our shared accounts. I had planned this precisely, locking the funds while Maria disguised the action as a regular banking issue. I could easily picture her growing agitated, pacing in the living room, Roger beside her offering meaningless comfort. He didn't yet realize his golden opportunity was vanishing fast. At the same time, Kathy had put the house up for sale in a rush, eager to collect the cash and make a clean break. She must have thought the delay in paperwork was just a minor snag in the system. What she didn't know was that I had already acted. Kevin had shut down the sale before it could go through. I began to question whether Roger, ever the opportunist, was starting to grow wary, but I seriously doubted it. His interest in Kathy was purely transactional. He was there for quick cash, ready to vanish as soon as the well dried up. As Kathy and Roger basked in what they believed was a triumph, Alistair, my sharp-eyed private investigator, kept feeding me real-time updates. "Roger's getting comfortable," he informed me. "He's been spotted driving your car, spending time at your house." I let Alistair believe that Roger remained clueless, blind to the storm approaching. Through his investigations, Alistair also uncovered a troubling pattern, a trail of women Roger had deceived in the past. One woman had drained her savings into a bogus investment scheme, while another had been left with overwhelming debt after he vanished from her life. "He's good at the con," Alistair said. "So am I replied calmly. While Kathy played the role she had chosen, I continued executing mine. I texted her a simple, seemingly friendly message, "Hope everything's going smoothly at home. Just finishing things up here. We'll be back before long." It was intentionally vague, just enough to keep her unsettled. She didn't respond, but I was sure she read it, likely turning it over in her mind, trying to decipher what I might know or plan to do. A week passed before Alistair reached out again, this time with a game-changer. Roger had begun submitting loan applications using Kathy's name. The amounts were modest, a clear sign he was testing boundaries. I couldn't suppress a laugh. "She won't notice," I said. "She's too lost in her own illusions to see it." But that wasn't the end of it. Alistair had discovered that Roger was also secretly seeing another woman, a telltale indication that he had zero intention of staying with Kathy after draining her finances. "Send over every bit of it," I instructed. Meanwhile, Kathy threw what she called her freedom party, parading Roger around as if he were some grand prize. According to a mutual friend, she had been spinning tales, blaming our split on me, insisting I'd ignored her because I was consumed by work. I wasn't shocked. Playing the victim suited her narrative. Let her talk. None of it mattered. The truth always finds its voice, eventually. With time, it became evident that the pressure was closing in on her. The sale of the house had fallen through, issues with the bank remained unresolved, and Roger was no doubt growing restless. Her money was vanishing, and she could feel the walls tightening around her. I made sure she stayed in the dark, unaware of the reality closing in. She believed she held control, but every move I made was crafted to bring her to the edge of her own unraveling. The irony was delicious. While she and Roger reveled in their fantasy, I was halfway across the globe, finalizing a deal that would define my professional legacy. The Budapest partnership had taken months of intense negotiation, balancing diplomacy with strategic finesse. Those same skills had proven essential in managing the chaos unfolding back home. This wasn't just another contract, it was my declaration to the world and to myself that I thrived under pressure. I was no victim in this story. I was the architect of its ending. The final day of negotiation was tense. My team and I sat across from a stoic group of Hungarian executives, their expressions unreadable as we dissected every clause. The stakes were high, but my focus remained razor-sharp. If anything, the mess with Kathy had strengthened my resolve. I couldn't dictate her choices, but this moment, this success, belonged to me. After the contract was signed, there was a lingering silence, followed by a firm handshake that seemed to stretch time. I posed for a few photos, gave a brisk interview, and retreated to my hotel. Stepping into the elevator, I finally allowed myself a long exhale. It was done. My company was now poised for international growth, and that was something neither Kathy nor anyone else could sabotage. That night, I treated myself to a quiet dinner, enjoying a glass of wine as messages from Alistair trickled in. The updates painted a predictable picture. Roger had resumed his pattern, using Kathy's credit to fund his lifestyle. The purchases were small, but they were snowballing fast. I took a sip, swirling the wine as I spoke aloud. "Perfect. Let him keep digging." Alistair paused, then added, "He's still seeing that other woman. Looks like he's lining up his next scam." I gave a dry laugh. Of course he is. That's who he is. A leech. But the most satisfying revelation came shortly after. Alistair uncovered something far more serious. Kathy had actually forged my signature on early-stage documents related to the house sale. It wasn't enough to push the sale through, but it was outright fraud. "She's spiraling," Alistair said. "And when people get desperate, they get sloppy." I nodded, unfazed. Let her keep spiraling. Every mistake adds to our case. Later that evening, I phoned Kevin, my lawyer, to review our legal position. "How strong is our case if we decide to move forward with this in court?" I asked. Kevin didn't hesitate. Between the frozen financial transactions, forged documentation, and Roger's clear involvement, we had ample grounds to claim damages. On top of that, Kathy's reputation would take a serious blow. I don't want to move just yet, I told him. She needed to truly understand the magnitude of her wrongdoings before anything could change. Kevin acknowledged this with a nod. Understood, he said calmly. But whenever the time comes, we'll be ready. Even with everything that had unfolded, I couldn't shake off my curiosity about Kathy's thoughts. Did she really believe she had outsmarted us all? Was she lying awake at night, haunted by the fear of being exposed? Or was she so wrapped up in her illusion of success that failure never crossed her mind? Part of me craved the moment of confrontation, the opportunity to expose every piece of her scheme and watch her reaction unravel. But I knew patience would serve me better. Acting too soon would only give her a chance to recover. No, the smarter move was to let her continue, thinking she was in control only to be caught by the very trap she built for herself. The following morning, as I packed my things and prepared to leave Budapest behind, a final message from Maria, my trusted financial advisor, arrived. All your accounts are secure, she reported. Even if she discovers a loophole, she won't be able to access anything. That's good news, I said. What about our shared investments? They're frozen, she confirmed. She can't make a move without your approval. Excellent, I responded, a hint of satisfaction curving my lips. Keep it that way. I want every consequence of her actions to hit hard. As the plane climbed into the sky, I gazed down at the vast cityscape beneath me. Budapest had brought not only professional gains but also personal validation. I had emerged from the chaos stronger than ever, proving to myself and eventually to Kathy that I didn't just endure betrayal. I grew because of it. Once I returned home, every piece would be set. Kathy was convinced she had claimed victory, but she was on the brink of learning a painful truth. I don't lose. Not in my career, not in life, and certainly not to someone like her. She was probably basking in her fantasy life by now, fully believing she had succeeded. I could picture the scene, her and Roger lounging comfortably in what used to be my living room, sipping expensive wine she never paid for, laughing over how clueless I must have been. But the comfort they felt was fleeting. Illusions are fragile, and hers was about to shatter. It likely began subtly. Kathy's first clue that something was off might have come when she attempted to withdraw some money, perhaps to satisfy yet another one of Roger's constant requests. She might have been slightly hungover, still in a celebratory haze, only to be met with a glaring message on the ATM screen: insufficient funds. Confused and irritated, she would call the bank, only to be told there was a temporary freeze due to suspicious activity. Just routine, they'd say. Nothing serious. But the doubt would already be planted. I imagined her pacing across the living room, trying to maintain composure while explaining the situation to Roger. He wouldn't care about the technicalities, only about the money. Men like him always do. Then came the house. Kathy, smug and confident, had likely listed it for a fast sale, slashing the price to skip through the bureaucracy. But suddenly, the process hit a snag. Her real estate agent would call with a hesitant apology, explaining that a legal complication was holding things up. What legal complication? She'd demand, her frustration rising. Well, the agent would respond carefully, your husband hasn't signed off on the sale. And just like that, the foundation beneath her began to crumble. Knowing Kathy, her first instinct would be to accuse the agent of incompetence. Then she'd turn her fury toward me, painting me as the villain trying to destroy her world. But deep down, reality would start to settle in. She was running out of options. Roger, unsurprisingly, wouldn't be sticking around to watch it all fall apart. Men like him, leeches, really only stay when things are easy. As soon as difficulty arises, they slip away, suddenly occupied with other matters. Kathy would notice his distance, but she'd pretend it wasn't happening. Desperation does strange things to people. She probably began reaching out to old acquaintances, trying to secure a lifeline. But betrayal carries consequences. People don't trust someone who has a history of backstabbing. Slowly, her network would shrink, leaving her alone to face the fallout. I didn't have to rely on imagination, though. Alistair kept me informed. She's spiraling, he mentioned during one of our check-ins. I caught her on video arguing with Roger in front of your house. Looks like he's ready to walk away. Let him, I said without hesitation. It'll make what comes next even smoother. Should I step in now? He asked. Not yet, I said. Let her continue. I want her to truly feel the consequences of her choices. Day by day, her world unraveled more. Every attempt to withdraw cash was denied. The house sale went nowhere. Even her calls to Roger began to be ignored. But the most satisfying moment? She tried to reach out to me 3 times. I let every call go to voicemail. Ben, I really need you to call me back. I don't understand what's happening, but we need to talk. This is urgent. Please, Ben, I'm asking you, don't ignore me. This situation is serious and I can't deal with it alone. This is because of you and you can't just walk away from it. I didn't respond to her messages. I wanted her to sit in the consequences of the chaos she had set into motion. The final nail in the coffin came when Alistair exposed Roger's plan to skip town. He's been siphoning off small amounts from Kathy's account, Alistair said. Looks like he's sending it to a different account registered under a fake identity. Couldn't help but chuckle. That was such a Roger move. Do you know where he might be headed? I asked. South America, if the passport details check out, Alistair answered. I nodded. Let him run. Sooner or later, it'll catch up to him. And just like that, Roger was gone, vanishing without a trace. Kathy was left alone, surrounded by the debris of her own disastrous decisions. She had no money, was expecting a child, and stuck in a home she couldn't unload. Her picture-perfect life had shattered by her own hand. I didn't feel sorry for her anymore, not even a bit. This wasn't a misstep. It was the predictable end of her lies, her greed, and her betrayal. I hadn't brought her down. I had simply stepped aside and allowed her to bring herself down. The flight back home felt dreamlike. As the plane descended toward the city I had left behind weeks ago, it hit me. I wasn't returning to familiar ground. I was stepping back onto a battlefield, only this time the war was over. I had emerged the victor, and Kathy hadn't even realized the battle had ended. As the plane touched down, I kept my emotions buried, though a slight smirk crept across my face. Everything had been arranged. Every piece was in place. All that remained was the final scene. Inside the terminal, I saw her, Kathy. She stood near baggage claim, a shell of her former self. Her hair was messy. Her outfit looked like it hadn't seen a hanger in days, and her face told the story of sleepless nights and desperation. I paused, soaking in the sight. I didn't need to guess why she was there. This wasn't a reunion filled with love or guilt. It was a plea for help. Ben! She cried out, hurrying toward me. Her voice rose just enough to make people turn, but I continued walking, unbothered. She caught up as I was setting my carry-on down. Her eyes were frantic, her hands shaking as she gripped my arm. What happened? She burst out, panic and anger mixing in her voice. Why is everything gone? The bank accounts, the house, the car. What did you do? I tilted my head slightly and looked at her as if I barely recognized her. What did I do? I repeated, my tone icy. Everything played out exactly as I wanted. Her mouth hung open in shock, completely at a loss for words. That didn't happen often. She scrambled for an explanation, muttering about the house not selling, something about the bank. You did this, she finally blurted. You stopped everything, you shut down the accounts, you blocked the sale. Why would you do that to me? Why? I echoed, my voice calm and sharp. Because you tried to ruin me. You lied, you schemed, and you thought I would just sit back and let you take everything. But you were wrong, Kathy. I leaned closer and spoke lower. You thought I wouldn't catch on. You thought I was naive. But I've been at this game longer than you have, and I don't lose. Her eyes welled with tears, and for a brief second, I glimpsed the woman I had once cared for. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. Ben, please, she said through broken sobs. I messed up. I wasn't thinking clearly. Roger tricked me. I raised an eyebrow. So now Roger manipulated you? I asked skeptically. She nodded frantically, desperate to hold on to any thread of sympathy. He lied to me. He made me promises. But he's gone. I know now I was wrong. Please, give me another chance. I let out a cold, short laugh. Another chance? Kathy, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to betray me. You chose to sell our home, empty our accounts, and wave your betrayal in my face. And now, because Roger left you with nothing, you expect me to forgive and forget. She flinched at my words, but I continued. I warned you, Kathy. I told you not to take me lightly. But you didn't listen, and now you're facing the results of your own actions. She collapsed to her knees right there in the terminal, crying uncontrollably. Please, she whispered, her face soaked in tears. I have nothing. I need you. I crouched down and met her eyes. You need me now? I asked. Where was that need when you told me you were walking out? When you sold our house like it meant nothing? When you lied about carrying another man's child? Her sobs became louder, drawing even more attention. I straightened up, unwilling to be pulled into her drama. You made those choices, Kathy, I said, my voice resolute. Now you have to deal with them. I picked up my bag and turned to leave. Behind me, her voice cracked with despair. Ben, don't leave me like this. I stopped briefly and looked over my shoulder. You were the one who left me first, Kathy. Keep that in mind, I told her before turning and walking straight out of the terminal, leaving her standing in the chaos of her own making. The drive home was silent, my thoughts a mixture of clarity and calm resolve. This wasn't just payback, it was a reclaiming of my own story. Kathy had done her best to tear me down, but instead she'd unintentionally built a stronger version of me. When I pulled into the parking space of my new apartment, a sleek, contemporary place I had arranged during my time overseas, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: peace. That chapter, the one that featured Kathy, had finally reached its end. And with that, a brand new beginning awaited. 2 days passed after that explosive encounter at the airport before Kathy reached out again. I wasn't surprised, part of me knew she wouldn't let go so easily. Her calls had shifted tone, moving from desperate pleas to accusatory outbursts, all wrapped in a heavy coat of self-pity. I chose to ignore each one. Then came a short message. We need to talk. Just one meeting, please. I almost dismissed it too. But something made me pause, maybe curiosity, maybe the need for closure. We agreed to meet at a modest little cafe tucked away in the heart of downtown. It was a safe, neutral place where she couldn't cause a commotion. I got there early, ordered a plain black coffee, and waited. When she finally entered, I almost didn't recognize her. The polished, confident woman I once admired was gone. In her place stood someone frail, with dark circles under weary eyes and a disheveled appearance that told a story of many sleepless nights. Ben, she whispered as she took a seat across from me, her voice unsteady. I gave a short nod, leaning back in my chair. Neither of us said a word at first. She kept fidgeting with her fingers, her gaze fixed on the table. I let the silence linger, watching as discomfort settled over her like a heavy blanket. Eventually, she broke. I'm sorry. I raised an eyebrow, silently questioning her. Sorry for what, exactly? For everything, she said quickly, as if the words might flee if she didn't rush them out. For the lies. For the pain I caused. For betraying you. Her voice wavered, and I could see her struggling to hold back the flood of tears. I took another sip of my coffee and allowed her words to hang between us. Go on, I finally said. She inhaled shakily. I don't know what got into me. Roger seemed like a different kind of person. He offered this dream of freedom and excitement, a life I thought I wanted so badly. But none of it was real. He manipulated me, used me, and left me with absolutely nothing. A short laugh escaped me as I shook my head in disbelief. So you're saying Roger twisted everything and you were just caught in his web? You played no role in this mess? Her face crumpled at my skepticism. I didn't mean for things to spiral out of control. You just what? I cut her off, my tone sharp. You just decided to sell the house without my knowledge? Drain our joint accounts? Parade your affair while I was out there building our future? Tell me, which part of that wasn't your doing? She winced at the truth laid bare, her tears finally spilling over. I was selfish, she whispered. I thought I wanted something else, but I didn't see what I was giving up. I didn't appreciate what I had until it was gone. Leaning forward, I rested my elbows on the table. And now it all suddenly makes sense to you? She nodded, her eyes filled with desperation. Please, Ben, let me fix this. I'll do anything to make it right. I studied her, then reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder, sliding it toward her. What's this? She asked hesitantly. Evidence, I replied calmly. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were detailed bank records of her unauthorized transactions, copies of forged documents she used in the attempted house sale, and photographs of Roger, now with another woman, his next target. When she reached the final sheet, she froze. It was a legal document, an official motion prepared by my attorney, Kevin. This is, she started, her voice cracking. A court motion, I finished. It hasn't been filed. Yet. That depends entirely on you. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time true fear showed in her expression. Ben, please. Don't go through with this. I've lost so much already. I can't handle more. You lost everything the moment you decided to betray me, I said, my tone as cold as steel. I'm offering you a way out, no legal action, but only if you walk away for good. This is your final opportunity. She nodded furiously, clutching the folder like a lifeline. I'll do what you say. I'll leave. I won't come near you again. Just please, don't go to court. Standing, I grabbed my cup. You'll vacate the house immediately. Kevin will handle everything for a clean split. If you try to reach me again, the paperwork goes straight to the court. She opened her mouth as if to argue but quickly changed her mind. She nodded in silence. As I stepped out of the cafe, I felt an invisible weight lift from my chest. That confrontation, though draining, had been crucial. Kathy's tears and apologies meant little now. What truly mattered was the freedom I had finally claimed. After weeks of suffocating emotional chaos, I could finally breathe. The person I had once loved no longer existed, replaced by someone I could barely recognize. And as the sunlight warmed my skin, I knew deep in my heart the chapter was finished. I had come to understand that I didn't need Kathy or anyone else to define what happiness meant for me. As I stepped out of that cafe, it felt as though a heavy burden had finally been lifted. The door clicked shut behind me, symbolizing the closure of one chapter and the beginning of something new. For weeks, I had lived under the dark cloud of her betrayal. But now I was ready to walk toward a life that truly belonged to me. My first step forward was reclaiming my environment. I had no desire to return to the home we once shared. That place had become a museum of lies, each corner echoing memories of a love that had never been real. Instead, I found a contemporary apartment in the heart of the city. Its towering windows revealed sweeping views of the skyline, a daily reminder of how far I had come, no matter the struggles. The early days on my own became a season of introspection and renewal. I carefully filled my space with elements that brought me serenity, sleek bookshelves, thought-provoking art, and a clean, minimalistic aesthetic that mirrored the growing clarity in my mind. It wasn't about possessions. It was about designing a peaceful retreat that felt entirely mine, untouched by the past. Work quickly became my safe harbor. After the success of the Budapest deal, my business gained international traction. I immersed myself in that momentum. The long hours at my desk didn't drain me, they empowered me. Every milestone reached, each project completed, laid the foundation for a new kind of security I was building for myself. But rebuilding wasn't just about career achievements. For the first time in years, I made time for personal growth. I began running at dawn, using the rhythm of each stride to clear away lingering doubts. I returned to passions I had once abandoned, playing piano, experimenting in the kitchen, and even diving into photography. Every new pursuit, every small victory reminded me that I was more than the version of myself Kathy had tried to diminish. Of course, the past occasionally made attempts to resurface. Some mutual friends would reach out, hesitantly asking whether I had heard from her. My answer never changed. I hadn't, and I didn't plan to. Her name no longer stirred anger or sorrow, it was just that, a name tethered to a part of my story that had ended. The real shift came one night at a company gala. It was the usual formal event, black ties, champagne, and polished conversations. Normally, I would have stayed at a distance, blending into the background. But that night, something in me had changed. I felt unburdened. Whole. That was the evening I met Claire. She was everything Kathy hadn't been. While Kathy had lived for appearances, Claire was sincere and grounded. Our conversation began by chance, sparked by a shared love of books. She was a writer, deeply passionate about storytelling. The more we talked, the more drawn I became to her honesty and warmth. For the first time in ages, something inside me flickered to life, a sense of connection I thought I'd lost. Over the following months, our relationship grew at a gentle pace. We were careful, taking time to understand each other. Claire knew about my past, at least what I felt ready to share, and never once passed judgment. Instead, she gently nudged me to look ahead, to focus on what could still be instead of what was already behind me. Life with her was calm, steady, and deeply fulfilling. Meanwhile, Kathy became a distant memory. The separation was finalized with little drama. Kevin let me know she had moved into a modest apartment on the town's edge. Alistair mentioned Roger had vanished, leaving her to face the consequences alone. She was struggling financially, barely keeping afloat. There could have been a sense of satisfaction in seeing her fall from grace, but honestly, I felt nothing. Her fate was no longer tied to mine. Reflecting on everything, I understood that Kathy's betrayal, though painful, had been a turning point. It forced me to confront the fractures in our relationship and pushed me to rediscover my own strength and values. That moment of devastation had sparked a transformation I never saw coming. Now, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, a glass of whiskey in hand, breathing in the peace I had craved for so long. Below, the city shimmered with promise, a glittering reminder of the possibilities still ahead. This was a new beginning and I was finally ready to claim it. After our final meeting at the cafe, Kathy vanished completely from my world. I didn't seek updates, but occasionally they came to me, passing comments from friends, scattered notes from Alistair, or the usual gossip. None of it was surprising. She had ended up in a small, cramped apartment far from the luxurious life she once knew. Roger was long gone and the bank account she tried to access had been closed to her. She survived on small, inconsistent jobs. The glamorous socialite facade had faded, replaced by the hard edges of her new reality. Yet, her problems didn't end there. One afternoon, Alistair called with news that even took me by surprise. "You won't believe this," he began. "Kathy's being sued by another one of Roger's victims. Apparently, he used her name to secure a loan, and now the creditors are coming after her." I couldn't help but chuckle quietly, shaking my head in disbelief. Karma, it seemed, had a quicker turnaround than I had anticipated. On the other end of the call, Alistair paused. "Do you want me to step in?" he asked. My response was unwavering. "No. She made her choices. Now she has to deal with them." Although I had tried to move past everything, a small voice inside me questioned whether Kathy ever truly grasped the magnitude of what she had done, not just to me but to herself. She had chased an illusion and, in doing so, dismantled her own life. Now she was facing the aftermath of her decisions. Over the next several months, something interesting began to shift. At first, people offered me their sympathy, the kind they reserved for someone who had been deeply wronged. But gradually, that pity transformed into something else: respect. It wasn't just about my achievements anymore, it was about how I had managed the chaos. I hadn't collapsed. I hadn't lashed out. I had simply chosen to move forward, leaving behind the debris of a shattered past. That newfound respect became unmistakable during a company gala. It was one of those elegant evenings filled with polished suits, sparkling dresses, and conversations designed to impress. I was there too, but this time not alone. Claire stood beside me, calm and confident, a quiet symbol of the new journey I had embarked upon. As we mingled with the crowd, I found myself reflecting on everything I had been through. Just 1 year ago, I had been caught off guard, fighting to salvage everything I had worked for. Now, I stood stronger, more aware, and full of purpose. Kathy, on the other hand, had drifted into obscurity. Last I heard, she was employed at a small boutique, trying to stay afloat. She had sent me a letter, not a short note, but a long, meandering attempt at an apology. Her words oscillated between sorrow and excuses. "I made mistakes," she wrote. "I know I hurt you, and I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive myself. But I was lost, Ben. I didn't know what I truly wanted, and I only realized what I had after I lost it." I read her letter once and then placed it in a drawer. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. The gala concluded with Claire and me on the balcony of my penthouse, the city stretched out before us, aglow with shimmering lights. She leaned into the railing, her features illuminated by the soft light. "You're quiet tonight," she said, turning her gaze toward me. "Just thinking," I replied. "Thinking about her?" she asked gently. I shook my head. "No, just everything, how much life can change in a year." She smiled, reaching for my hand. "Then let's toast to that." I lifted my glass to meet hers. "To change," I said. And in that moment, as I looked out over the city and felt the warmth of her hand in mine, something became clear. Kathy's betrayal hadn't destroyed me, it had liberated me. It had forced me to confront the flaws in my life and build something stronger in their place. Through it all, I had learned the true meaning of loyalty, the strength and resilience, and the undeniable peace that comes from letting go. I didn't crave revenge. I didn't need apologies or closure. What I needed was the future I was shaping. One filled with promise, untouched by old wounds. This wasn't a victory because I had won. It was a triumph because I had let go. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I was genuinely happy.